all, welcome back. So in this one, just to review, what we have is you can choose anything that you want for the axes and have it auto calculate. You can do anything for the trend line. That's cool. Those features are pretty awesome. But what I wanted to do in this one is I wanted to kind of take a step back and do what's called unit testing. So this is more like what you do in production level code, is you want to be able to test your inputs. So if I just bring this back, say we want to run a test each time that we push to production, that if you select each of these options, it's not going to result in any errors. So that would be where unit testing comes into play. So Streamlit actually offers something for this. So what I'll do is I will just run the test right now that's completed, just to let you see. So as you can see, it's running through every test and they're all passing, and you can even get a percentage here in like how much of your test suite is actually being tested. So these are interesting stats to have. So ideally we would have this set up in like a GitHub action, so that whenever we end up like pushing, we'll have these tests automatically run and it'll just make sure that everything passes. So let's get it. Alright, so let's install what we're going to use here. So we're going to use pip env install. We're going to use a module called pytest, and pytest COV, which is going to give you the test coverage. That's going to give you the statistics about like how much of your files are being tested. And so pytest it will look for anything by default when you run pytest that has any file that has the word test in front of it. So what I usually do is I'll make a separate test directory, and then I'll make a file in here. Let's call it testapp.py, and let's first just make a basic test in here. So what we're going to do is first we're going to want to import, get out of here. Let's import pytest first. Okay. Let's close that again. Yes. And then we also want, so the Streamlit testing library, I don't know why that keeps popping up, is from streamlit.testing.v1 import app test. And what this is you can call this, and this you can issue Streamlit commands to it, so that will actually simulate running your application. So we'll first set up a test fixture. So a test fixture can run, you can set it to run, by default it runs before every single test function. You can set it to run only once per file, or you can set it to run once per your entire test run. So by default it's function, right? So we want to change that. We can change that using the scope parameter here. And the scope parameter that we'll set, you'll see you have the options here. So we'll set module. This means that it runs once per file. So we'll call this function diff app test. I'm going to take in no parameters. And all it's going to do is it's basically going to return an instance of app test. So app test, there are a couple ways that you can import it to run your Streamlit. You can have it run from a file, from a function, or from a string, so you can define the entire Streamlit app in a string even, which, okay. But we're going to want to use, I'm going to choose to use from function here, so we'll need the actual function imported first. So what we'll do is we'll say from main import main. That'll be the main function. And then we can just go back into here and say main. And then, so Streamlit by default, its default timeout is 3 seconds. I want to change this parameter. I usually like to, in practice, change it to 30 seconds to, you know, just in case, like as your app grows, it might take more time. And then what we do is we simply just run the test, which that will actually run the Streamlit application. So we've defined our test fixture at this point, but we haven't actually defined a test function. So all functions have to be prefixed with the word test in order to be run. That's how pytest recognizes them. So we'll just call this test app for right now. And so it is going to take in a parameter, and we'll call this app test. And the reason that we're doing this is because pytest works by, it looks at the parameters that you pass to a function, and it sees that this is the name of one of the test fixtures. So it will run that, and this return will go into the result of this app test variable here. So we can use that, and then we want to, let's just assert that we don't get any errors. So what we're going to do is assert not app test dot, I think it's just the exception. Yeah, it's just the exception here. Alright, so now heading over to the pip file to actually run this, because we can use the pip file to actually create an alias for it. So I want to create an alias called test. The actual command to run is just pytest. So if you're not using pipenv, you can do that. But what I want to do, the reason I want to alias that is because we're going to throw in a couple command line switches here. So we're going to do -v, that's going to put it into verbose, so if there are any errors that pop out, then it'll show that. And then to enable the code coverage, what we want to do is we want to do --cov equals, and we'll just do dot, so it does the directory that we're on right now. So from here, if we just do pipenv run test, then you'll see it'll fail, and that's because it says there's no module named test. Now the reason for that is because we have it in a separate test directory, so it can't, pytest can't find where main is. So the way to fix that is we want to do pytest.ini. We want to make one of these files, and this is like a configuration file. So for the file, we do pytest, and then we can just do python path equals dot. And that should be it. So if we run the test again, now we still end up hitting an error, but this time it's a different error. It says that load data is not defined. So the reason for that is if we look at our main file right now, we have the main function, which is what we're importing into our pytest, but we're only importing that. We're not importing load data, clean data, or generate scatterplot. So what I'm going to do for this, what I often set up in some of my other projects, is that I'll refactor all of these lines into a different directory just to keep them more organized. So we'll just call this src for source, and we'll call this plot.py. So now paste all this in. Let's see, we can get rid of this. And that's it. We still kind of want everything else. And then back over here in the main file. Okay, so now that we've copied everything, we can get rid of up to here. So st page config, we still want to bring this over into the main function. So in the main function, we'll say from src.plot import. We want load data, clean data. As you can see, these errors are resolving now. So now we should have that. We can get rid of these two imports now. Okay, so we should be good to go ahead and run the test again. So if we say pipenv run test. Oh, okay. It's saying that st is not defined, and that's because we have this up here still. So we just want to bring that into the main function as well. So now if we go ahead and run it again, it'll pass. Okay, great. So that is just running a basic test in Streamlit. So this is very basic. So obviously I want to make it so that we can actually test the imports, but I'll do that in the next video. So thanks for watching.